Hey, Composite Gloves here. This is the 9th video in the FM8 from the ground up tutorial series. And today we're going to be talking about operators. So it's a pretty basic idea and it's really important to understand before you get into more advanced things. So to get to the operators tab, you come down here to expert and you see there's operators here. Go ahead and click on that guy. All these extra menus right here are part of your experts tab and you click on them to switch through the various options. Today we're going to be covering essentially what this part of this page is. We're going to leave X and Z for another day when we cover X and Z. So you have operators A through F in what's called your FM matrix. It's this really scary looking grid that we will cover at a later date. But you need to understand a few things. Whenever you have something on, it turns white, which means that it is usable. When you have something selected, it turns yellow. Okay, so you just click it. You right click it to turn it on or off. Hit control click if you're on a Mac. And then if something has a line going down to this top row here and is pointed out, that means it is going out so you will hear it, essentially. So as you see, when we select things, they go to their tabs with all their extra options on them. We're going to ignore that for right now and just go to our operator group page. So you can have access to all your operators settings. You can have access to a lot of, when I say all operators, I mean operators A through F, and you have access to these settings when you go to this page. Okay, so we're just going to cover, because it's real important that you understand what ratio does and offset. So ratio is, well, let's play a key. So we've selected a key, it's a C, and so many oscillations have to happen in a second for you to hear that pitch. Okay, this ratio changes that. So we selected this value, and right now it's saying a 1-to-1 ratio. So we play a tone and we hear that tone. It's a 1-to-1. But if we were to say double it, and now remember we have to go down to F to double it because the key we're hearing is the F, because that's what's coming out. So if we double the F, we should hear double the amount of oscillations that happen in a second, which would be an octave up. And if you were to go up again, up to 3, you would hear an octave up plus a fifth. So a fifth from C is G. So we should hear this G, which is, or this G right here, because we're playing it down here. So an octave up plus a fifth is that G. If we go up again, we hear 2 octaves up, because 2 times 2 is 4. And if we would want to go up another octave, we'd have to go to 8, and so on and so forth. And you have all these in-between values that do different things. Okay, so a few quick tips about moving with this. You could click and drag to change the value, or you click selects the value selecting. So if you just want to change the whole numbers, you click over on the edge and you could do that. If you just want to change this stuff down here, you click over here. So that's what that does. If you want gradual changes, so say we're changing the whole numbers but we're moving too quickly, we could hold down shift while we drag, and it becomes much more gradual. It changes the tens place with what we're doing. You can also double click and type in a value, and that is what that is. So that's what the ratio does. Now let's go to the Hertz Offset. So let's say we want it to be at a ratio of 1. But if we select a value down here, that's a much slower range, as in there's less oscillations that have to happen in a second for us to hear that tone. But if we select a higher range, there are a lot more oscillations that have to happen in a second. So if we were to use the ratio knob to change the pitch, that would make this pitch much higher. If we were to 2, then this pitch, because this goes up an octave up, but that's not that fast compared to this guy an octave up, if that makes sense. This will become much more important later on when we get into what FMing is. So let's say we want to make it a static change. So we want everything to go up by the same amount instead of going up by double whatever the amount we're selecting is. Well, that's where Hertz Offset comes in. You could select a value. So you could select 70. So it'll go up 70 Hertz. So it'll oscillate 70 times instead of this 1-to-1 ratio. And that'll add 70 to whatever value we select, which is currently at a 1-to-1 ratio. And you notice we could go down in hertz. That's because this hertz value is equivalent to pitch. And depending on what pitch you hit, we're hitting this pitch, we could certainly go down in pitch from there, so we can go down. Or we could go up. But you cannot change your ratio to go below 0. That's impossible. So that's what that does. Now let's give a better example of this Hertz offset real quick to give you an idea. Oh, another thing, you can hit these little tabs up and down here to change values by increments. Okay, so let's give you a better example here. So I'm assuming you've watched my What is FM synthesis video. So we're going to turn on oscillator E and route it in to F, or operator E, and we get that. But if we make operator E substantially slower, so let's make operator E, let's make the ratio 0.009 and hit a lower note. Let's make it a little faster. So we hear that going on, okay? But if we select a higher note, it gets much faster. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the ratio, and we're going to make operator E as a Hertz offset. So the value will stay consistent regardless of what pitch we're selecting. So right now we have that pitch. Let's offset it by 136. That's actually pretty fast. Let's offset it by 30. Let's go even slower down to 10. Okay, so we hear that. Blah, 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 blah. That should stay consistent no matter what pitch we hit. As you can see, that is now consistent. So that's what Hertz offset does. That's one of the practical uses for it. Now let's go over here. We have our waveforms here. Pretty simple. You can drag to select through your waveforms. To get back to your sine wave, you actually have to drag down, not up. So, and you have all these different ones, and they each have sort of their own, they did a good job at selecting waveforms so that they give you a variety of things that you would probably want or desire as a waveform. And we will talk about these probably at a later date. I may not talk about these at all. You'll see them happen though when I experiment, because they have interesting implications when you start using them to FM things. But we're going to stick with our sine wave right now. And so that's that. You have this invert option, which will flip our waveform. As you can see, flip, flip, flip. Flip, 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 flip. Yep, that's what invert does. You have key sync, which starts the waveform. When you turn it on, it'll start the waveform at the beginning every single time. Versus, as you won't really hear it right now, but when you get into multiple oscillators and you want a specific thing to line up, this could become really important. It's the equivalent sort of oscillator sync in massive, except for you could do it on each individual operator. So with it off, it's in what's called free run mode, which means the waveform just picks up wherever you left it off. So, right, let's say you played and then it stops right here. The next time you hit a note, it'll start right here and then continue on its way. So it messes with the phase, essentially, is what key sync does. And this is much more important in FM synthesis, being able to individually control this, which is pretty cool. Then you have pitch envelope. That is a control that is linked down here to the pitch envelope over here. As you see, it says pitch. And we're going to talk about this later, but just so you know, this turns on whether or not it is linked to this pitch envelope. You see by default, everything is. But you could turn it off. It still behaves. Essentially, there's like a background pitch envelope that it listens to at this point that would behave like you would expect, a straight tone, just like that. But with it on, you can make changes to this pitch envelope. And it, as you can see, responds to the pitch information we are giving it. So we are just going to cover the last thing here. And then you have velocity hit, or the velocity sensitivity. If you turn velocity sensitivity up, when you hit a key harder on your MIDI controller, it will respond to that velocity change and react. But I do not have a velocity sensitive keyboard hooked up at the moment, and I rarely do. So if you're into live performance, that could be useful, but it could be useful if you're doing something in a piano roll and you want modulation to turn on faster through your amplitude, because you can link things to be velocity sensitive, which you'll see as we move along. Like in operator, you have a velocity sensitivity here that makes the amplitude sensitive to the velocity. By default, it reacts, I believe, normally. Turn it up, more reactive. And turning it down, I want to say, is less reactive, but I do not know that for sure. If you do use this feature, drop it in the comments and, drop some knowledge. And that is it for the operator page. We're going to cover X and Z at a later date. If you enjoy these videos, subscribe. Check out my music on composinggloves.com. Thanks for watching and have a blessed day.